editor of Emerald Lake Books, and I am coming to you today with another episode of Emerald Lake Books Live, ELB Live. This is our 21st episode now, so we're getting on up there. When Mark and I first talked about us doing this, I honestly didn't know if I would get past 2 or 3 of them. But I'm really enjoying doing this, and I hope you're getting a lot out of it as well. Certainly, please comment and let us know if that's the case so that we know that you're appreciating this. To move on to today's topic, though, one of the things we're getting a lot of questions about is about really what's going on in the world. People are concerned about the coronavirus, and as well they should be. And so they're trying to figure out, especially as authors and publishers, how to adjust and where to go next. So I thought in this episode, maybe I would share a little of the insights of things that I'm seeing or noticing, share some of the conversations we've had, and go from there. This coronavirus, unfortunately, is such a thing that more than 500,000 people in the world now have confirmed cases of it. And of that 500,000 people, only 27% of them have either recovered or passed away. So there's still a long lead time to when this is going to be over with. We've already been dealing with it a couple of months, and in all honesty, I see this being something that is going to be something we need to adjust and account for in 2020 if we're going to be able to market and sell our books. So that's why I've spent some time kind of looking into this, and just wanted to share some of the thoughts and ideas that I've had along the way. But really, this is going to be a time of adapting and adjusting, figuring out what works and what doesn't. And so some of the things that I tell you now, I may come back a month later and say, yeah, don't do that. But to the best of my knowledge and understanding right now, this is where we're at. So let's talk first a little bit about Amazon's email that it sent out a little while ago to many vendors and sellers on Amazon, and much of what's being shown in the media regarding it as well right now. Publishers Weekly shared an article recently about shipping delays hit books and other publishers at Amazon. And the gist of this article is that Amazon, because of limited warehouse space and limited warehouse staff, is being put in a position to prioritize what gets shipped out and what doesn't. So items such as household staples and health and medical goods, those are going to be prioritized over everything else, including books. And so some publishers are seeing that their books are being delayed as much as a month before standard shipping will cover it. And others may go out, in a shorter period of time. And in the email that Amazon sent out last week, they indicated that delivery times are going to be longer than usual until April 5th. Now, part of the reason for specifying April 5th is the fact that Amazon has gone ahead and hired 100,000 additional employees. But they need time to train them and get them into place and be able to actually be effective in helping offload some of the challenges they have in warehouse fulfillment. So in the meantime, there's going to be longer shipping issues. Now, you'll notice that there are 2 specific books given as examples here. And I did a little digging into, why might it be that Where the Crawdads Sing it won't ship until April 21st, but this other book, let's see, I looked up The Big Book of Silly Jokes for Kids, which will arrive as of the time of this article, which is written on the 24th, it would arrive by the 27th, so under normal Amazon shipping times. And the major thing that I noticed about both of them is that Where the Crawdads Sing is using a major retailer, major publisher. It's published by Putnam and Sons, and so the distribution channels that they're going to use, they're going to be having offset printed books, most likely printed in China or overseas where they can get more economical printing rates. And so I think that is part of what accounts for the longer than normal shipping times. When you get down to, the Big Book of Silly Jokes for Kids, this is a much smaller publisher with only a handful of titles. And as a result, most likely their distribution method in Amazon would be via print on demand. And so this isn't then a warehouse issue so much as making sure that the print on demand takes place and it gets shipped out right away, as opposed to having to go out and find it in the warehouse and pick and pack. So I think that's part of what we're seeing there as kind of why there's going to be Amazon delays and things that they need to prioritize in order to keep everybody safe. So, one of the things we have always said as a publisher is that you don't want to focus just on one distribution channel. You want to have as many as possible. And so, that's one of the things that we often encourage people, is to make sure that you're not only distributing on Amazon. Most authors will say, well, we see all of our sales from Amazon. Well, if you don't distribute elsewhere, of course, that's going to be the case. But for many of our titles, when we put them out there, we put them out on Amazon first for both Kindle and paperback. If we have a hardcover, we'll use Amazon Advantage as well. We also will put our print books through Ingram Spark. And currently, we put our ebooks through Smashwords, but we're going to be adding in Drafted Digital as well. Now, why are we doing so many different distribution channels? The thing is when you have multiple distribution channels like that, if one gets shut down, the others are still there. Now, in using this method for our book distribution the way we've been doing it, it means that on average, about 70% of our sales come from Amazon. The other 30% come from the other sources, so it is a smaller piece. But if you had a chance of having $70 or $100, which would you prefer to have? It's kind of a no-brainer. It doesn't take a lot of additional time to set up the other channels once you have the book listing and metadata in the files. So it makes sense to use these other channels. So when you do, that means that you have more opportunities for consumers to be able to access your book. Now, the other thing that we may want to consider doing in this day and age is actually doing some more direct-to-consumer sales. So one of the things that you may want to consider having for your book, especially if you are distributing your book through Ingram, is using Aereo. This is AER.io. And one of the reasons we recommend it is that it allows any author or publisher to grab a little widget of their book that they can put on their own website. And so when somebody visits your website and you are selling direct to the consumer, what this does is it places an order with Ingram for that book to be printed and shipped. So Ingram is handling the fulfillment of it. All you are doing is providing the interface for the order to be placed. And that way you don't have to have your own inventory at home. But if you prefer to have your own inventory at home, you can do something like what we've done, where we have a store on our website that lists our various titles. And when the order comes in, then we either fulfill from inventory that we have in our office, or at that point in time, I can go into my author dashboard, publisher dashboard, and print and ship books directly from there to the consumer. So once again, I'm not physically handling the books there, but I could. So those are some of the things that you may want to think about in trying to be able to do some direct-to-consumer sales that may help. Now, the other issue that's going on right now is because of the pandemic, we have a lot of libraries and a lot of retailers that are having to close, hopefully temporarily. Unfortunately, some places like Powell's bookstore is stating that they're going to have to close permanently because they don't have enough margin to be able to stay open. So there are some different things that you can do, especially to help retailers like this, that at least will help them bridge the gap a little bit more. So there's been recommendations out there about buying gift certificates, gift cards, things like that, so that you don't have to access physical inventory right now, but you are providing them with some financial benefit that will allow them to keep their doors open longer. That's one particular possibility. The other is there is a new store. Let me show this again. It is called bookshop.org. And the neat thing about bookshop.org is that you can find a bookstore near you, or you can simply shop for certain books on this bookstore.org. And when books are purchased through this website, it is somewhat of a competitor with Amazon, but what's happening is the books are being fulfilled through Ingram, and local bookstores are being credited for those sales. So what you can do is you can actually find your local bookstore by going to Find a Bookstore. One of our local favorites is Bird's Books. They carry quite a few of our books. And so what you'll see is a storefront that is dedicated specifically to that store. Any books that are purchased from here don't come from physical inventory that's at Bird's Books. Instead, they come from being printed on demand at Ingram and shipped directly to the consumer. But the bookstore is still seeing some of the revenue that comes from that sale because it took place through their bookstore. So that's one of the things that you can do. A great way of being able to continue to support your local economy and making sure that retailers have what they need to keep going. You also could start focusing instead on selling more digital assets. And that could be something where you're working on selling more ebooks to libraries, because there's a lot of consumption going on of digital, whether it's ebooks or audiobook right now. You want to make sure that any book that you have, if it's not in ebook format, if it's not in audiobook format, I highly recommend using this downtime to be able to make those formats of your book, because that is one way that books are getting into consumers' hands right away with no delay, no chance of contamination. It's a great way of being able to kind of bridge and what we're going through at this point in time. The social isolation can be hard, and so having especially relevant titles right now, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But let's move on to my next topic, which was I did digital sales. So one of the questions that I was able to ask a friend of mine, Amy Collins, this morning, she does a free advice Friday every Friday morning at 10 a.m. And if you haven't participated in that, I highly recommend going to amysadvice.com, and that will take you to her YouTube channel. She has so many great videos out there to kind of walk you through everything. But one of the questions that I asked her this morning really is, I hear a lot of people talking about the fact that they have a book launch coming up, and they're trying to figure out, do they still do their launch right now, or do they not do their launch? Do they hold off on it? And I think one of the things that we have to be mindful of right now is there's a lot of stress going on. There's a lot of tightening of the belts. I think that if we have books that are going to be helpful to people in this circumstance, and that makes sense then to go ahead with your launch. So for instance, in this call, somebody was talking about suicide prevention. Their book was on suicide prevention. And yes, something like that in a time when everybody's mental health is kind of stretched a bit. It makes sense to put something like that out. But a fluffier piece, maybe it makes sense to hold off a few weeks, maybe a couple of months even. So if you have a book launch coming up in April or May, you may want to really consider, is now the right time? Because one of the things about a book launch is you often want to be out there pounding the pavement, letting the people know, book is there, and all these different things. And we have to be sensitive to the stress that people are under right now. So it's a personal decision as to which way you go with that, but I highly recommend that if you can afford to wait a little while, that you go ahead and do that. And instead use this time for preparation, and I'm going to get into that next, where you can work on doing basically some soft marketing. And the soft marketing can be things like writing articles, arranging reviewers, putting together all your social media content that you will use when the book comes out. It can be, doing videos where if you're a children's book author or a chapter book author, you can do videos of you reading the book. Chapter book, do it a chapter at a time, and put one chapter out each day, something like that. If you have something that's more along the lines of self-help or personal development, doing clips of that book, whether you are making them available for free online as an excerpt that people can read, or you do just a quick audio recording or video recording of them. There's a bunch of different things you can do. Actually, we're going to give kind of an example of soft marketing in next week's episode, because what we're going to do is I'm going to bring together a panelist of some of our authors who are self-help authors. And a lot of what their books have to do with is mindset and mental health, and how do we work our way through challenging times. And so it made sense in this particular instance to bring these folks together to be able to talk not specifically about their books, but about the concepts and principles in their books. And so that is a form of soft marketing. As much as, yes, we want you to go out and buy their books afterwards, what's more important is what we want to give you, which is resources you can use in order to help with your mental health during this challenging time. So keep in mind, this is all a time of adjustment. We really don't know what the future holds when it comes to the publishing industry, but we do know that, if we are paralyzed by fear, if we do nothing to plan ahead or prepare, we're going to be in the same spot now, if not worse, than later on. So if you use this as a time to kind of look at your marketing, look at how you connect with people, look at how you're distributing your books. Are you doing a wide enough distribution of them? These are times when you can kind of correct some things, prepare for the future, so that when it is time to hit the ground running with sales again, you'll be able to do so fully prepared with what you want to do, how you want to accomplish that, all these different things. So, one of the resources that people are using for us has been some coaching, just in terms of, how can I position this book? How can I market this book? What can I be doing with it in this time? We're getting people reaching out to us, asking those kind of questions, and it becomes an opportunity for us to be able to help in areas where we can, and adjust how we're doing things so that in the end, we've developed some good relationships and strong connections with partners and with potential clients in the future, and with people who, at the very least, can share, how we've gone ahead to help them. Now, keep in mind, with all the different crazy things that are going on right now, a lot of conferences are canceled through the end of May. And I'm even seeing some cancellations for conferences that are supposed to be held in September. So right now, we don't know how long to be prepared for this, but my guess is we really need to be prepared for at least a few more months to be able to adjust how we're handling book marketing. Now, one of the things is to keep in mind that different distribution channels are printing their books in different places. And so the availability of them, when China was hit first, a lot of the print facilities there had to close. But here in the US, a print facility like Ingram or Lightning Source is considered to be an essential industry. And so as an essential industry, they are still functioning. And they have business partners throughout the world that are helping them to get books into places. It may take a little longer than usual. Certainly everybody's understaffed that is working. There's a lot more questions coming in. There's a lot more customer service going on. And so we have to be patient with each other. We have to give time for the things that are going to take, and just really keep our positive feelings in place, because being positive through this time is going to make such a big difference in how we fare through this time. One of the things, I had somebody say something to me recently that I felt was a little unnecessary, a little harsh, and I noticed that it impacted me a lot more than it typically would. And it wasn't anything that was, a personal attack. It just was somebody who had a difference of opinion from mine, and yet it was challenging to hear. And so just be mindful of how you interact with each other. I'm not going to tell you the whole thing that everybody else is telling you about, don't touch your face and go wash your hands and all this stuff. I'm sure you've heard it enough already, but just be kind to each other. You don't know what anybody else is having to deal with or contend with on the other side. So as you are marketing your book, as you are publishing your book, as you are working on selling your book, see it as a service to each other. And if it's not currently a service, find a way to be of service. And just know that, this will end, it will pass. And when things do pass, I think we're going to see a much brighter day because of how we have pulled together as individuals and as communities. So I want to just kind of stop my little soapbox there and end with a couple of additional resources that I am going to post into the chat. And one is the IBPA Resource Center. Now, you are going to see this in the comment section if you are looking at this video on the Emerald Lake Books Facebook page. If you are not, you will have to actually come on over to be able to see it, but I'm going to temporarily put it on the screen so you can see it there. IBPA has a great resource center that they are updating regularly with information that they are finding that are relevant to publishers and the publishing industry related to COVID-19 and news and information that's coming out. The other thing is that Ingram has a publisher preparedness checklist that I am also going to put into the comments, and I will display that one as well. But if you want a clickable resource for these, you are going to have to come to the Facebook.com/Emerald Lake Books to be able to see the full one. But this is the URL for the Ingram Publisher Preparedness Checklist, and I'll show you what that looks like. It's a fairly short checklist. It's 8 different points that you can work on to be able to just kind of make sure that you understand what is going on and some different things that you can do. And a lot of it is about going global, using print on demand rather than offset printing, going direct to consumer. These are a lot of the points that I've already talked about in this, but it's a good little checklist to have just to make sure that you're hitting all the right notes. As always, if there is anything that we can do to help you, please let us know. Feel free to reach out to us either here on Facebook or at emeraldlakebooks.com. Our shortened URL is elbks.com. And as I said, next week we will have a guest panel, and that guest panel is going to be from the authors of You Are a Heroine and Solutionaries, and I'm hoping Love Your Life will come as well. So join us next time when we talk a bit about just how to keep our mindset positive in this time, what we can do in order to get through challenging times, because challenging times will end and everything will get better again. And I am firmly of the belief that the best is yet to come. That has been my motto for a very long time now, and I hope that you believe that too. For now, signing off, and stay safe and be well. This is Tara Alamany of Emerald Lake Books.